Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to another special episode of the Death, Taxes, and Sports podcast. Road to episode 93. We are officially at episode 93. We are joined by Ben Holloway. Our friend Gary Johnson will be waking up from his nap shortly. I don't know when. He probably has to get his bottle from the whatever. And we also have a very special guest. We have Mr. Nick Wilcox, co-host of TBQ Sports, big time sports fan and a fantasy football fanatic. Sounds like we have to get him in the fantasy football league. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today?
Nick, how are we feeling today, bud?
Oh, we're feeling fantastic. Ready to rock and roll. Ready to have an awesome show. I thank you guys so much for allowing me to be here. I can't wait to hear you guys' opinions. I can't wait to have an awesome sports show tonight.
We like that. We like that vibe. We like that energy. Good stuff.
No doubt. And all of a sudden, Ben is a LeBron James fan. All of a sudden, if you see the jersey in the back, I don't know where that came from all of a sudden, but I had to poke fun. What is your motivation, inspiration, Benjamin?
Benjamin?
Motivation for what, sir?
I don't know, sir.
General?
Whoa. Hey. Why are you calling me sir? I'm just calling you by what your parents gave you, Benjamin. I just got to give him a hard time, Nick. We like to have a little bit of banter here. We just like to have a little banter, but it's all good. But someone's like, "Oh, Ben, why? Is that Ben? Why is that the why they did it? I don't know. We'll see.
I'm not quite sure, but let's get it rolling.
Let's get this going.
Topics,
So
let's
get going. Ben, it's my job to talk about what we're introduce the topics here. Thank you. Respectfully, Nick, it's okay. We both ate our dinners. We're all good. So tonight we're going to be discussing the NBA draft, Damian Lillard show, Ohtani. I'm looking forward to that one. Chris Paul, and as well as predicting all 14 playoff teams in the NFL. But Nick, I first have to ask you, who is your basketball team?
I don't have one. Back in the day, I was a big into the Pistons and the Spurs. Spurs,
Okay.
I just love the way that dynasty really played out, that franchise in general. The Pistons, because, I had a Ben Hamilton jersey.
Nice.
Sorry, Rich Hamilton jersey, and a Chauncey Billups jersey. I just loved both those teams back in the day. Just loved how I like to play basketball. Really grind it out, play great defense, get good stops, score baskets. But I don't have a team now because there's every 2 or 3 years, stars are moving teams. The NBA is such a player-centric league now, so that's just kind of like where I'm at now.
Yeah, and Ben, and I totally respect that. I think that the way that we're going to talk about Damian Lillard as well, but before we get to this NBA draft, Ben, I was thinking, I want to touch on this whole just Joel Embiid thing just real quick, if we can, just for like 2 seconds. Do you think that he's going to get restless if they have another postseason exit the way that they did? And then, Nick, I want to get your thoughts. I just want to pivot just real quick because I was thinking about this on the way to getting my chicken biscuit sandwich from Chick-fil-A.
So the answer to that is, for me, is he like Dame? Or is
he going to get restless? Can you see him forcing himself out?
That's what I'm saying. Is he going to be like Dame and want to stay with one team, or does he want to win? That's the answer, really. Because, I don't know. Sorry to make it simple, but that's really what it is to me. Does he get impatient and want to go somewhere where he thinks he can win, or does it matter to him to be loyal?
Right. Facts. Just curious. Nick, your thoughts.
My thoughts on just Damian Lillard, or more?
No. On Joel Embiid, because when I was
that
chicken biscuit sandwich was dope, by the way. It was awesome. Thanks for asking. But just your thoughts.
I honestly I think honestly Philly, they've been just a bonkers franchise last couple of years. They still haven't gotten rid of Tobias Harris for whatever reason. They need to bring back James Harden to have any legitimacy to have an Eastern Conference run again. But even then, are they going to get back to semifinals? This team should have actually beat Boston. And the fact that they didn't, the fact that they crumbled in Game 7, just goes to show how far.
Game 6 as well.
Sorry, yeah.
They choked the fourth quarter lead at home.
Tatum wooed them up to victory. I'll just say that. I wouldn't say this game. Game 6 was a debacle in itself, but Game 7 was worlds weirder. So, so I mean, that's where again, like this Philly team in general, like you got to look at it as they got Nick Nurse now as the head coach. I think Joel Embiid still has a lot to prove, even though he just won the MVP, which should have been Jokic's, in my opinion.
Facts.
But this is where we're at. I think Joel Embiid just has to like. I think any Eastern Conference team, just for the sake of conversation, you're gonna have an opportunity to get to the NBA Finals. If you're in the West, you're gonna go through a gauntlet no matter what. In the Eastern Conference, you're gonna have your opportunity to beat teams that whatever have you. Look at Miami this past year; they just beat the Bucks. They beat these other teams to get to the finals. The Knicks, the Celtics, to get to the finals. So it's like it's not like you're going through such a gauntlet edge versus the West. So in my opinion, I think Joel Embiid just needs to stay. He needs to still prove it. But in order to do that, he needs some help. And I think James Harden, him being back on the team would make some sense. But I think in general, this team needs to just have another guy that needs to be able to step up. Tobias Harris is supposed to be that guy who's getting paid to do so. And the fact that he isn't, you just need to get rid of him. You need to get him out of there. And if Harden's not coming back, go get Fred VanVleet. Go grab, a Jordan Clarkson potentially. Just get this team moving when it comes to shooting and, guarding, whatever have you. So I think that's
no doubt. And I was just kind of curious because I just wanted to get some thoughts. It was just kind of on my mind there. But Philly's not going to win a championship in the next 5 years. I'll put a whole $1.73 on that. I will bet. I will totally bet. I totally bet $1.73.
Why so specific with the cents?
$1.73. I mean because. Yeah, that's a lot of money,
Nick, he started that about 2 months ago, where he's just offering bets for $1.03, $1.50. Once he's doing it, he's got to keep it going now.
Yes, of course. That's like my thing.
I'll go check my piggy bank.
All right, sounds good. $1.84. That's it. I got no more for you.
Okay, whoa. Now you're getting too rich for my blood.
Both you guys New Englanders, so I got to sound like a Boston guy, right? So I can fit in.
Oh, boy.
I'm kidding. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to this NBA draft.
Ready, folks.
Let's get to this NBA draft, and Ryan, we are going to get to some. We're going to get to some baseball. We're going to get to NBA. We're going to get to all this stuff. But let's first start with this NBA draft. I first got to say the Denver Nuggets. I'm going to go to the Denver, and then Nick, I'll pass it to you. Then Ben, I'll let you have it. I really got to say I'm really impressed with what the Denver Nuggets here. You look at the players; all of them are under the age of 28. Right, outside of KCP. Right, you look at Aaron Gordon; he's going to be 25. You look at Michael Porter Jr. He's 24. Aaron Gordon, the other two dudes, names are drawing blanks, but Joker's going to be 28. I mean, they have a real good window to be able to extend this championship run, and I really like what they did, and I have to give them a B+ on this grade because they've really got one of my favorite players via the Pacers is I'm probably going to pronounce his last name wrong, but whatever. Juan Strether, whatever his name is, but I liked him in Gonzaga. I think he was a very good pick. And then Jalen Pickett, a guard from Penn State. The one thing about Strether, I'm pronouncing his name wrong. I don't care. The guy's 6'7" and is a wingman and can shoot. I think that man's going to add a lot of. He's just a dude that's just going to be able to play right away, and it's going to be able to contribute right away. This team is going to go from 8 deep to probably maybe 9 or 10 now, and they're going to easily be able to replace Jeff Green. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Nuggets are set up well for the future with the young talent that they have on their roster. Jokic, Aaron Gordon, 28 and 27. Jamal Murray, 26. And Porter, 24. That rookie, who next year will be a second, Christian Brown, 22. So they got young talent, and all that talent is locked up for at least 2 more years, maybe even more than that. And they did well in the draft, like you said. It was actually a little bit, I know I'm going off from the Nuggets, but it was a little bit surprising that when we were looking at, doing a little bit of research as far as like who had the best drafts, and it was like unanimous, like everywhere. The top 3 was Spurs, Rockets, Blazers.
Easily.
Everywhere that I looked, and the Spurs, like, for me, yes, of course, they got Victor Wembanyama.
There you go.
Said that wrong.
Wembanyama.
I can say it right off air, but not on air. but their other pick is also French as well, City Casico. And, scouting report, he's a really, really good defender and, good playmaker as well. As far as the Rockets go, we know their top pick, Amen Thompson, but they got somebody, Cam Whitmore, who's supposed to be a top 5 pick, and got him at number 20. So that's good there. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent here, but the other thing I read about the Rockets is there's a pretty good consensus that they also drafted the 2 best athletes in the entire draft, although Victor is kind of number 1 there, so I don't know how they got to that. But anyways, the 2 picks that they got were really athletic. And then the Blazers, really quick, Scoot Henderson, a lot of years, would be the number 1 overall pick. So I know you asked
Don't forget about Chris Murray.
You asked about the Nuggets, and I went a whole nother way. But
no,
anyways.
It's all good. No, I actually had Houston and Portland, but got to give a shout out to that guy Chris Murray, the forward from Iowa. He's also a nice pickup for the Blazers as well.
Yep,
I gave him a grade.
Yep.
But Nick, your thoughts?
So I'm sorry. What was the question in general?
I probably didn't even say. I probably should have asked what the question was. My bad.
It's okay.
I got too excited.
It's all good. It's all good. It came from a great place.
So teams that you feel had great drafts or really solid picks, like setting themselves up for the future.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, Portland was obviously one. I'll continue with that. I think when you I think Portland is set up to really have an opportunity to have at least Dame in the conversation of the playoffs, but nothing more. But Scoot Henderson, though, regardless what happens with Dame Lillard, they're setting up for their future. And then getting him at 3 when people thought, he was going to Charlotte. I mean, by the way, a loser is Shams because he was saying, Scoot Henderson's going to go number 2. And then all of a sudden he doesn't go number 2. So I think, in general, Portland was a solid team. I honestly thought, mind you, the Warriors, I think, definitely won this one as well. On the low, because how do you get a guy like Traylon Jackson-Davis very late in the draft when he was literally showing out constantly in college? This draft, in a sense, baffled me a bit because there were guys that were dominating in college, literally going 2nd round. Some of them didn't even get drafted. Some of them are 2-way players, like Sonogo, not being a homer. I'm not being a homer. This guy was just in the one whole thing. And you're not trying to mold someone like that. I think in general with NBA versus the NFL draft, in general, NBA players are just going to be selected based on intangibles more than there was more production. I think the strategy has shifted for the NBA draft with some of these GMs over the last couple of years because they're just looking for guys to kind of piece more of their roster together. A winner, I would say, is the whole G League night. You got 5 of these top players, 6 players that were drafted at the top of the draft. The Thompson twins, who else? Obviously Scoot Henderson. You got guys that were overseas. I don't think we had a college player get drafted in the top 10 till 8 or 9 or something like that. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Brandon Miller, obviously, but in general, I think there are more ways now to get more seen in the NBA than ever before. So I think that is a win in its entirety. But as far as going back to the teams, I think the Warriors, are besides the CP3 acquisition, we'll get into that. But I think they're a solid get because I think Jackson Davis is literally a guy that I would want on my team to mold because the guy is a in the paint scorer. Once he gets his shot more there, I tell you, I think he'll put it together. He'll be one of those guys that we look back at the draft and you're like, oh man, how did we miss out on this? Did you watch the damn tape?
Yeah.
Did you watch his games this past season? I don't know. But like I said before, I think it's the NBA scouts. That's why I'm a little surprised at some of these picks. That some of these guys are being drafted based on more intangibles than they were about production and performance, and that's just where that goes. Ryan says the G League is a huge place to show off, and it's true. I mean, it's not the only game. College is not the only game in town anymore. Ever since now, because of all these NIL deals, that's one thing to keep kids in college. But honestly, there have been players since high school been chomping at the bit, and they know they're better, and they don't want to go to college, and this is a way to showcase their skills. So, absolutely, I think it's this is the first year I feel like in a draft that the G League actually like has showcased like they're like okay, they're prospects, and it's like oh okay, this is what they've been cooking up the last couple of years. So, I think more players in general here got the nod. Teams. I mean, Wizards are not exactly a winner, but I love what they're doing at the moment. They're just tearing it down, and with all these younger pieces, this younger core. I think in general, that's another winner. Heard that says the draft was decent. If you weren't a big man, Drew Timme, the center from Kansas, can't recall his name, just to name a few not drafted. It's true. It was that. Yeah, it was like, hey, what are we doing?
yeah, and Nick, I think that you make and shout out to Marissa. She's one of our co-hosts. Hopefully, her voice is feeling better. But I think that's what it shows, right? Homeboy from Connecticut, right? Any other draft 5-6 years ago, Ben, he would have
Jordan Hawkins. Jordan Hawkins.
Him or
you're saying like Jordan Hawkins
the centers. I'm talking about the centers. He was a straight beast.
Whatever.
He was he was a beast in the post. You could not stop him. Mm-hmm. He has a home in the NBA, but it's probably going to be a role player because he has no type of perimeter game whatsoever. And you're probably thinking he's very undersized. He's 6'7". And so against little boys in college, he's going to dominate, but it's only going to be a matter of can he develop his game to be more of a perimeter type of player. I mean, the guy was a straight beast. But just real quick to touch on the Houston Rockets, the Houston Rockets are going to be able to have a young talented lineup of Amin Thompson, right? You're going to have Cam Whitmore, you're going to have Jalen Green, and you're going to have Jabari Smith. All those guys are at least 6'5" or more. And Udoka, who's coming in with that type of young talent, they're going to be something to watch for in the next 2 to 3 years. But Gary Johnson, how you doing? You're on mute.
On mute.
No, there you go.
I knew I was on mute. I was also pulling up the agenda as well. I apologize.
It's all good.
Children. That's my response.
No doubt. But no, let's get you in this, man. This draft, Gary the Legend Johnson, sir. Let's pass the baton to you. A team that had a good draft, really solid pick. What was one of your fans? We were dying to know what you thought.
I wasn't as thrilled about this draft as I have been in years past. I don't know why. Like you had once you got past 1 and 2, once you got past Wembanyama and Brandon Miller, it's like everybody else is a maybe. They should be good. They will be they can reach that next level, but there wasn't anybody that I'm like that really that blew my mind. I'm sorry, there wasn't anybody for me.
That's terrible.
Why? Who'd you have in mind?
You don't think Scoot Henderson is decent?
I think he's good. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I think that there's a lot of there really weren't that many generational talents.
Here's what I'm going to say.
You have a lot of solid ball players. People like Scoot Henderson, he's going to have a solid 15-year career in the NBA. That's probably going to lead. That may lead to the Hall of Fame one day, may not. But there's a lot of those. There wasn't that seismic shift. Besides Victor, besides him, there wasn't a solid oh my God, the whole franchise changes now. With Victor, the Spurs are going to be back in the playoffs next season as long as he stays healthy. Beyond that, everybody else is okay, they're good. Let's see how far we can get with them.
And here's what I'm going to say, Ben, and then Nick, I want to get your thoughts on this.
Sure.
This draft, I really think this draft was one of the more underrated, one of the more underappreciated drafts, right? You look at guys like Cam Whitmore, you look at the Thompson twins. Scoot Henderson is going to be an all NBA franchise-changing type talent. I'm just that convinced. I'm not convinced about Wembanyama just because we haven't seen a guy that tall be able to sustain just his availability. I'm just not convinced that he's going to be this mega star. And it's not because of lack of ability, but it's just because he's so frail. But you got these guys that are really good. Grady Dick, who's going to be a great three-point shooter from Kansas, but he wore an ugly draft day outfit. I don't know what the heck that thing was.
It was like trying to be the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. Ben, take it away though, and then Nick, and then we'll go back to you, Gary. But that thing, I don't know if he was trying to audition for like a middle school tap dance show. I don't know.
Oh God! So we talked about the good. There's always bad as well.
Yes. Go for it.
3 teams for me, bad, and then we'll toss it around. The Bulls, number 1. A lot of people think Julian Phillips, who was their only pick, was a reach, and they traded second round picks to get him. So for me, even though they only had 1 pick, that's a downgrade there. The Grizzlies, they drafted, probably going to get his name wrong, but Tariq Biberovic.
There you go.
Which he probably won't be in the NBA for another 2 years. From what I was reading, he's still going to play in Europe. So for a team that is a true contender, which they are, Ja's not gone forever. Different subject for another day. But Grizzlies are still a contender. For them to draft someone who can't help, and then their other pick, what I was reading, which of course I can't have the name right now, but their other pick was supposedly someone who wasn't even supposed to get drafted. So Memphis, and then the Magic. The reason is their second pick, number 11, Jet Howard, although he is probably going to be pretty good, most people thought he was going to go in the 20s, and he went at number 11. So those are my 3 on the downside. Nick, what you got? Who had bad drafts?
I would say, I think Derek Lively is a little bit of a reach. I mean, there were just different comps from all over the place. And for him to go 12 versus some other guys on this list, I just felt the Mavericks were kind of trying to fill their need, but I feel like they could have gotten someone else a little bit later. I think on that pick, they could have easily gotten another guard. I thought like Buchanan from Michigan could have been a guy they could have easily gotten. Hawkins could have been a guy. Just another person you could get instant offense from. In general, I thought it would be more of a better fit for them. So I thought they kind of flailed there. Another selection I had was, I'm not sure about Clowney from Bama. I've seen some good things from him, but I'm not exactly sold on him being a first-round pick. He was kind of more teetering towards like that first, second round for me. But other than that, I mean, those are some I wasn't like pleased with those picks. I mean, they could have done a lot worse, but that's where I kind of was. I didn't mention, but I think Denver really killed the draft too. Like the players I really liked, they end up falling to them. Like a Jalen Pickett, who at Penn State was like instant offense type of guy. And who they grab at 29? Strawford from Gonzaga. Now, Gonzaga wasn't like they were a team that just they ran through Drew Timme, but they always had decent guys like Strawford that would be able to come in there and do some things. But I really like what he can do for Denver. It kind of reminds me of a not as poet MPJ, but something along those lines that they can mold.
Yeah, no doubt. It's definitely going to be very interesting to see how kind of all these guys are going to be developed. But Gary, your thoughts?
So for me, I start off with the Clippers. I personally think the kid they got the last pick in the first round, what's his name? I'm looking him up now. Kobe Brown. He's good, but I really feel like that's somebody that you could have easily picked up in the second round. I think the first round was a bit of a reach for him. I think that was a stretch, although they did get Jordan Miller, which I thought was appropriate for a second round pick. I wasn't in love, like I said, with Ben said, I wasn't in love with what the Cavs did. I like Imani Bates. I think that's a good flyer for them as far as the second round goes.
Definitely.
But, I just feel like the question is who had a bad draft, who could have done more. I feel like Cleveland struck gold elsewhere. I think Bates will not to be a solid player for them, or definitely one of the steals of the draft when it comes down to it later on down the line. I had no idea who the hell Boston picked. I had to look him up. Jordan Walsh. He's physical or whatever, but he's also a 6'8" forward who's going to be buried on a bench behind a bunch of 6'7" to 6'9" forwards. Like that's kind of Boston's MO, and as far as in their front court. So we'll see what happens with him, and then you hit the nail on the head with Memphis. With the kid Viverovich and Gigi Jackson, they're good, but are they going to be impact players, especially when you're going to be missing your star player for the first 25 games? So, I'm looking at those three teams, specifically the Clippers. I'm looking at them going like, okay, your picks weren't terrible, but how much of an impact are they going to have?
I mean, facts. Those are all facts. And guys, I got to throw one more team out here. I really think the Wizards dropped the ball on this one. Balil Coulibaly. I just thought it was a reach at number 7, and I felt like all the other players that were on the board. If you're the Wizards and you did the salary dump, right, and you got Tyus Jones, you got dude who couldn't hit a 3-point shot from Golden State all of a sudden. And you really could have had a good opportunity to get a really good player that could be a starter for you and that could really grow into the young core that you're trying to assemble. And if I'm a Wizards fan, I am not necessarily sure if I feel that this is a guy, mind you, he was on Wembanyama's team. I'm just not sure if he was even top 20. It was a very big. They could have gotten Grady Dick. They could have gotten Whitmore. They could have gotten some really, really good young guys that really could contribute and grow into a starter. So that one was just a little bit disappointing. But anyway, let's get to this. Let's get right back to this Damian Lillard one, because this one's going to be interesting. When they drafted, and I got tossed to do when they drafted Scoot Henderson, we always knew the questions were all going to start about, are they going to trade him? Are they going to keep him? They say that he wants to stay. But I just don't see them being able to build a team around him that is going to be able to contend within the next year. Your thoughts, and then Ben.
Okay, so
Damian Lillard.
Oh boy, I gotta lead this off. I love it.
What should they do? Give him a favor and trade him to a contender, even if he doesn't wish it, or no, keep him.
I honestly think that Damian Lillard deserves better. He's been with this team, this city, for quite some time. And it feels like they don't do the necessary things to get him help. You did some things when it came to, Jeremy Grant coming to town, doing some things because he's versatile. But Nurkic can't stay healthy. CJ McCollum had left town, but would you really, Simons was a guy that I really like. But this team in general just needs more. And it just seems like every time they get a few pieces go. When you're in the West, you got to do a lot more things to get yourself over the hump. And Portland's just not doing that. And I don't think they are in a position in the next 2 years, 3 years, to even sniff a conference final, let alone an NBA final. So they need to do the right thing. They need to trade Damian Lillard. They need to trade him. He needs to get traded to a solid team that could go compete for a championship, because although the only reason why that hasn't happened yet is because Damian Lillard is a cool cat. He's a very chill dude. And it's not like he's one of these prima donnas that comes out and he says he's going to demand you trade him because of X, Y, and Z. I think Damian Lillard is just cool with going with the flow right now still until really reach a boiling point. But whether the franchise wants to trade him or whether Damian wants to go, neither one of these guys, whether it comes to organization or Damian Lillard, neither of them want to have the PR hit. They're just playing a game of chicken, in my opinion. It's like the organization doesn't want to trade Damian Lillard because then it lose interest from the fans and this, that, and the third, because they're losing that guy who's going to sell tickets, they're going to get his jersey. And then Damian Lillard doesn't want to feel like he's betraying the city of Portland because if he asks for a trade, he wants to be out, he wants to win a championship. I mean, no one would probably knock him, but it'd be still like, man, why'd you leave? You said you were going to bring a championship to Portland. In my opinion, there's two teams I feel that Damian Lillard will have an opportunity to win a championship, and have a solid nucleus core to have at least a couple of shots at getting the championship. The first team is the obvious one, Miami. Miami, the only problem with them right now, and also just in general, the whole Damian Lillard thing, there's only so many destinations he can go to right now because there's only some teams that are still young, still building that core together. And then there's more of these other teams that have some really good cores and good teams, but they have no cap space. So it's a weird conundrum because, obviously that if that were the route that the organization was going to trade Damian Lillard to, that'd be like, all right, like where are we going to trade him to though? Miami would probably put together a package of like Tyler Hero, maybe Kyle Lowry, and some draft picks. Potentially. That's a potential package. They couldn't trade Dame and Butler. I don't think Damian Lillard probably would want that because what is he going to be left with if one of those guys go? So in particular, you probably got those two guys. You got some draft picks, even maybe some guys they just drafted. That could be a potential route. In Miami, obviously, we saw was close to getting to the championship. The other route and the other team, I think, would be really interesting, by the way, the Brooklyn Nets. And here's why. The Brooklyn Nets already have some solid wings when it comes to Dorian Finney-Smith, when it comes to hopefully re-signing Cam Johnson. When it comes to re-signing Cam Johnson, they'll have some solid wings there. They'll have Dinwiddie, so that's not as much ball time pressure. Damian Lillard can play off the ball. You can play with the ball. You have Claxton, who's an up-and-coming center in the middle that could play really good. And there's a lot of things to like about this Nets, and obviously Mikal Bridges, of course. So this team in general, with him inserted, would be an interesting conversation when it comes to them. Like I said in the top of this conversation, playing in the East allows you to have some more opportunities to get to a finals. There's more routes to get to a final than you are playing in the West. So that being said, I think those two teams in general make a lot of sense. People are talking Golden State. That would be an interesting situation. Because I obviously thought in the beginning of all this, what if that happened? But there are a lot of and that could easily happen, I would say, but also it's not exactly as clear cut. So I would say those two teams when it comes to Heat and the Nets, obviously a lot of people are talking about Heat. I think the Nets would be making a lot of sense when it comes to a compensation that Portland would like, and also the fit that Damian Lillard would fit into that overall, and again, a route to him getting to a championship.
Facts. All good stuff, man. I love it. Ben, then actually, Gary, because since you were a little bit late, I'll go to you, Gary, and then I'll go to you, Ben, to finish off. If that's okay, Ben.
So we're talking about
Good with me.
We're talking.
Should they trade him? Go against his own wishes. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're talking about your best friend, Gary Damian Lillard. Should he stay? Should he go?
Yeah, listen, I have nothing but love and respect for Damian Lillard and how much he has ridden for the city of Portland, good and bad, up and down. Bro, you got to get a champion. You got to get out. You got to get a championship. If you were meant to have a championship, you would have had one by now. Honestly, if Portland was meant to be an NBA champion, he's had stronger teams than what he's currently dealing with. And he had a better. I'm sorry, I love Chauncey Billups, but he had a better coach than Terry Stotts. I'll say that. Like he was in a much better scenario when he was losing and being swept by Golden State towards the end of the 2010s or whatever. Like he was in a much better situation there. Saying that, I think we all know who. We all know the teams. We know Miami is probably of all the teams that are out there. I think Miami is the likeliest place that he would end up at because I feel like Miami is more. Pat Riley's more apt to give up assets because he has never found an asset that he wasn't willing to trade. In my opinion, I think if it's a means of having this team be relevant and back towards the top again, especially in the East where seemingly that will be opening up a little bit more when you consider Milwaukee and the unknown there, Philly and the unknown there. The Knicks are who they are. Cleveland is kind of who they are. Boston, you don't know. You know what I'm saying? So of those teams, Miami is ripe for the picking to be that team that gets back to the top in the East and stay there. I think that would be the likely scenario. Brooklyn, again, you're like you said, Nick, like you're banking on them re-signing Cam Thomas or Cam Johnson and what's his name, Bridges and all that. Like you're banking on that. And I'm sorry, nothing against them, but I didn't think Brooklyn was as strong in the team post trade. They lucked into the playoffs because they front loaded so many of their wins at the start of the season. So, like, if you would have done that trade, if you would have gotten rid of Kyrie and Durant at the beginning of the season, the Nets wouldn't have made the playoffs. Let's be clear about that. So,
I disagree. I don't think you watched enough games where Michael Bridges went the hell off.
He did. And I
don't think you give him enough credit to Bridges with him and Dinwiddie coming in and kind of bringing this team up into the playoffs. Because even though the East is a shit show, it says something about these guys coming in right away and taking a franchise that probably shouldn't even be in a position that they were to get into a playoffs and to do something. I think it takes guys.
No, I respect Bridges. I respect Spencer Dinwiddie. I just am looking at that team as a whole. I'm looking at that bench. I'm looking at their depth, and I'm like, that's not a sustainable. That if Dame Lillard wants to win a championship, that's not the offense. That's not the team to win with because I don't trust them. I don't trust them any more than I trust Portland to build a solid team, a solid bench beyond.
You're saying Brooklyn is the same as Portland?
I'm saying I don't trust management. I'm not saying that they're the same. I don't trust.
Okay.
I don't trust their management to do. I think they're in the same boat. That like management's a little iffy as far as doing what they need to do for their star players. I look at that. I look at this in both cities. I'm like, it's kind of the same thing.
So I don't think so, but I think it's. I can understand your hesitation with management per se, but the only reason why they did that move as far as moving Irving is to make sure that they have something to build upon instead of letting it keep it dying down. Because obviously Irving was like obviously KD wanted out, and then Irving was like, these guys ain't trying to work with me, but it's like you weren't trying to work with them. You were toxic as hell. So it's like you can't exactly blame management. You can blame them for the Steve Nash hire. I'll blame him for that.
There's beyond Kyrie stuff. There's a lot that you can look at the Nets management. Historically, they've never been the most well-run franchise, and I think Portland is starting to slide down into that like mismanagement phase. That's why I see. That's why
I just think Portland playing in the West. You're playing in the West. There's so many teams in the West that are going to make it, and if you look from top to bottom, as you know. Portland is, again, like, unfortunately, on the shorter end of the stick of teams that aren't going to make the playoffs because there are so many other good core teams in the West. If you put Portland in the East, yeah, they would have a puncher's chance to get into the playoffs, but it's like they play in the West. So,
no, absolutely. And, and to that point, I'm like, how I look at Brooklyn, I'm going, how much further are you going to take Dame Lillard? I look at Philly. He can go further with them. I look at Miami. He can go further with them. I'm looking at those trade scenarios and going, okay. If I'm Dame Lillard, those are your two cities. It's either Philly or Miami. Brooklyn is a good story. They can be something, but I'm sorry. If you weren't going to be a championship-level team with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, who, let's face it, like, they've proven themselves to be at that level alongside of Dame Lillard. Like, what's Dame Lillard going to do for you now?
All I'm going to say is, just real quick.
My last point on that would be more of if Dame if you ever hit the Nets, I'm saying it would make sense for everybody around. But when it comes to Miami, I think Portland wouldn't get as much of a package in Miami than it would to them like Brooklyn. Brooklyn has more of the pieces. They have more things to kind of offer, in a sense, to give to Portland for that to have that more smoothly. And Dame said he would be willing to play for the Nets. So that's something that's kind of there as well. But with Miami, I understand because they went to the championship. They would have some more pieces. It would somewhat make more sense. But then besides Bam and Butler, you have to ask yourself, if they trade away some more of that depth, like who else is going to step up in that overall team after them?
So, and Ben, before I toss it to you, like, here's what I'm just going to say with the whole Nets thing is that Mikal Bridges went off, but there's not enough of a sample size to know whether his offensive game is sustainable enough to be a good number two on a championship team, right? Is the infrastructure there in place? Miami has proven that they could be successful by developing young talent by having four undrafted free agents. If they give it to some of those, they can plug and play with some of those guys. I trust what Spoelstra is doing because he's been able to go to multiple finals, multiple conference finals with a very underwhelming team. So I think that you have a decent, good three with Lillard, Butler, and as well as a Bam Adebayo, and then you can fill in the rest of the pieces. They still made it without Tyler Hero, right? So I'm not sure. Even if he was included in a trade, I just trust the prowess and the scouting of Miami versus Brooklyn. But I still think, Nick, you make some very good points, and I think Mikal Bridges is good, but I'm just not sure if he's good enough to be a number two on a championship team, which is what Damian Lillard wants, right? So
fair
that's
enough.
all. Yeah, that's fair.
It's definitely fair enough.
Yeah, but all good stuff. But Ben, let's get you in here because we still got to get to Porzingis. We got to get some NFL talk. But I love the sparring though. All good stuff, guys.
So I'll be quick. I think the Blazers should trade Dame. I don't need to speculate on teams. You guys did that for me. I think it's pretty easy. One thing I want to say on Dame is it's easy for anyone to say if we were in his position, we'd want to win, so we wouldn't want to stay. But unless you're in that exact position, all you're doing is speculating because you don't know what you would actually do until you're in that exact situation. So I don't feel that he deserves criticism necessarily for placing importance on loyalty rather than championship. If that's what makes him happy, that's what makes him happy. So if he wants to stay loyal, I don't think he should get criticized for that just because the public and the media wants him to win. If that's not what he wants,
exactly,
then like he should do what he wants. Now, as far as the Blazers, I think they should trade him similar to, it was a long time ago, but Ray Bork was on the Boston Bruins. He was a great player. They weren't going to win. They traded him to the Avs, and he won a Stanley Cup.
I like it.
And I think the Blazers should do the same thing. I think that they should be like, listen, Dame gave us everything. We tried to put pieces together, but let's be honest, since they traded McCollum, which, to be fair, the pairing of McCollum and Lillard wasn't getting over the top. So I understand why they did it because I think they've reached their ceiling. But since then, it's been all downhill. And I think the Blazers can confidently say, listen, Dame, I know you want to stay, but we want to do you a favor. We want to help you. So I think as the organization, they should trade him. But let's keep it moving. Let's get to some more fun.
No doubt. This and Dame is going to be very interested. And Nick, I really loved your passion with that, man. I really did. That's what we had to have you on. I love the passion. We definitely got to bring you back on, man. So you spitting facts, bro. I love it. So this Porzingis to the Celtics one, Ben, definitely has me a little bit interesting. This trade, there were so many different things that could have happened. Malcolm Brogdon was in the trade at first, but then ended up being a Marcus Smart, which I thought was interesting. I'm just going to say this. I'm just going to throw some numbers here. So since 2017, 2018, these are the numbers that the numbers of games that represent that he's played. 48, 57, 43, 34, 17, and then 65 games, which is the first time since 2016, 2017. Albeit, average 23 and 8 on 38.2% shooting from three. The question is he worth the risk of trading away a guy like Marcus Smart? I think, Ben, when you consider the number of games that he has missed over the last 5 seasons, yes, it's a risk, but you got to love the upside. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think it was worth the risk because, sure, Marcus Smart, he's the block room, the heart, all of that. And my response actually to my wife today, which she mostly doesn't like sports, but she loves her Celtics, was if all of that is true, that Marcus Smart is an amazing leader, and he was the glue, he was all of that, but they still didn't win, then it doesn't make him untradeable. Just because he has all those intangibles, they didn't get a championship. Not saying it's all his fault, but What I'm saying is the organization probably looked at it as he is going to be 30. We know because of how much he hustles and how much he cares, he gets injured. When you get on the other side of 30, if you're already injury prone, you're going to get more injury prone, most likely. And they probably, like it or not, and this is a topic for another day, they're likely going to pay Tatum and Jaylen Brown over $600 million, which, again, we don't want to go good idea, bad idea, not now at least. But you only have so much money. You can't pay everyone. So they probably looked at it as if we're going to get Porzingis, we got to trade something. So overall, to me, worth the risk. And to me, it does increase their chances to win a title just by a little bit. So.
And Gary, I'm going to throw this in, but just real quick on the salary cap perspective. From the salary cap, right, he's owned $38.6 million, but he's on a short-term loan unless they want to pay him more money. So with that, it's going to hamstring them. And what has been the one thing that has allowed them to be successful is their depth. So they have to really figure out the numbers if they're going to pay Brown and they're going to pay KP, how that's going to work out the numbers. But that's all I was going to say. Gary and then Nick, take it away.
If you would have told me that there would be a roster in 2023 that has Kristaps Porzingis and Blake Griffin on it, and it'd be the Boston Celtics, I would have laughed at you. Yet here we are. I'm a fan of Kristaps Porzingis' game, although I do call him a better shooting Sean Bradley, and he hasn't proven me wrong thus far. And to your point, Ben, like, you know, if Marcus Smart really is the heart and soul of that Celtics team, if he is to the Celtics what Draymond Green is to the Warriors, then this trade's a little dicey. I think it's a benefit for Memphis because now you have leadership at that guard position while your would-be leader is out. I think he will provide that same Tony Allen type toughness to Memphis, and I think that will be a benefit in the long run. But as far as what Porzingis can bring, yeah, that's another 20-point scorer, and somebody that can shoot it from deep and be a threat. If he can be consistent and can be healthy enough to last long enough, then yes, I think you look at a team look at a Tatum, a Jaylen Brown, and you put in Brogdon and you throw in a KP. I think there's not a fall off. I don't think they're better for the trade at all, but I don't see them being like, oh, we're gonna tail off and go from being a 50-win team to a 40-win team. I don't see that. I think they'll be where they're at, but I don't see this being a trade of any significant consequence to them other than Marcus Smart being gone.
Yeah. And Gary, does it make them a champion? Does it improve the chances to win a championship? And then we'll throw it to Nick.
No, like I said, they're no more better than they were before the trade.
Okay, facts. I'll take that.
Same.
Mr. Wilcox, your thoughts?
I mean, I think it was a great trade for the Celtics. I think literally people are kind of downgrading, like trying to really. Marcus Smart was a decent player for them. I felt he was always more of an emotional leader for them, though. So, yes, you lose some perimeter defense, but you improve. Another person that can score in the inside, could get a jump shot going, can hit a three every once in a while. And the playoffs, you need a guy like Porzingis. You get to keep Robert Williams. It's not like you lost him. It's not like you still have Horford on the books. You could potentially probably trade him away for something else if needed. Same thing with Brogdon. So I think you can still get some depth with this Boston team. I don't think Boston's done yet making moves, and I think they're still in where they're at. I think they just got a little bit better, but obviously it's not like a huge plunge towards them being a finals contender, but they are still in that conversation heavily. I think they improved their odds. It's just more of, it's not obviously like a boom play where it's almost a guarantee for them to go to the finals, but they keep themselves very relevant. And I think as long as Porzingis is healthy, that's what it kind of hinges on. I think it's a good bet. Porzingis makes $33 million on this contract deal, which is hefty. But again, I think with a guy like Porzingis who can get you a 25 and 8 every once in a while with 2 blocks, that kind of makes up for Marcus Smart's 2 steals per game and his 15 points. I think this is a great move for Boston and a step in the right direction for them to get back to a finals overall and winning a championship.
Facts. All right, awesome. Ben, any final thoughts before we get to the CP3 trade?
No, I was just gonna see if I could Yeah,
3-1.
so Chris Paul, top 10 point guard ever, probably top 5. But let's stick with the now. The Warriors are going to be his 4th team in the last 6 years. That tells you a little something. His points per game has decreased in 4 out of the last 5 years. And I looked, the minutes played is basically the same. So it doesn't have to do with less minutes, more minutes. It's basically the same. So his points per game has decreased. His assists, passing, if you have passing as a skill, that doesn't go away. That's always going to be a skill no matter what age. So the assist hasn't really moved. But, he's obviously on the downside of his career. I can understand to a certain extent why the Warriors did it because of, when Curry went to the bench, how they were this year specifically. But let's just be real. This was, we want Draymond and we don't want Poole. And we have to keep one of them. We can't keep both of them. Draymond has 4 rings. Yes, he's older, but we're going to choose Draymond, definitely paying him less compared to what they were paying Poole. So it was a trade in saying that we want to keep Draymond, and we are going to, and we got to get rid of Poole to do that. And you know what? Chris Paul might help us. He still could be good, but I don't see the Warriors as better today than 2 weeks ago. I think they're just like that's the same. They didn't improve.
Yeah, Nick. Like for me, it's clearly a salary dump because they made a mistake giving Jordan Poole that contract. I'm just going to call it what it is. But for me, from an external standpoint, it just doesn't make sense. You're looking at a 39-year-old point guard who
he's not that old.
Injured. 39 is not old in real life, but in basketball,
he's not old. He's 37.
Hey, 39, man. That's
correction. 30. Just turned 38 in May.
Oh, okay. Well, happy birthday! We'll send you a cake.
In May.
We'll send you a cake. But look, okay, 39, 38, 39 is not old, but in basketball terms, let's just call a spade, right? But it just means they're older, whole hell of a lot smaller. That's all I'm going to say. But Nick, your thoughts can go to you, Gary.
I honestly think, people are looking at this move as CP3 being the starter. Who says CP3 is even going to be the starter on this team? And if he isn't, which I think could be a benefit for Golden State, because they know the game changes when it comes to playoff time, half-court offense, and you don't have a solid leader coming off the bench. I think CP3 leading the team off the bench provides some opportunities to get more of a pick and roll going, provide things from a leadership standpoint to keep things in check, and it allows CP3 to still not play as many minutes as he used to play in, and it provides Warriors a little bit more depth here. I think, although they get older, I think the Warriors still have an opportunity here to still compete at a very high level, with CP3 being the 6th man. I don't see him starting unless it's 4th quarter, which obviously I would probably want that. But in terms of that goes, I think everyone's looking at this move a little bit like, CP3's going to be like starter-ish. He really shouldn't be. He should be looked at as a 6th man. But who says he's even going to stay with the Warriors? Maybe the Warriors have another move. But I think that's where I'm seeing this move at the moment. It's like, it looks a little bit like, they got older, they got rid of Poole. But again, I think Poole leading off the bench when he was coming off, there was still, Warriors had, I think they were bottom 5 with turnovers when he was on the court when it came to them coming off the bench. So in terms of not turning the ball more, they bring the assists, they get more of their game going off the bench. It makes sense from that point of view. But like I said, I don't think the Warriors are done, and who knows if they'll keep on the CP3. But I don't look at him as even the starter in his offense overall.
Yeah, no doubt, Gary. I think CP3 is part of a bigger trade chip in the future. I don't know what it is, but I have a hard time seeing him on that team. They're working something else out, but that's just my thoughts. But what's your take, Gary?
So when this trade happened, I looked at it as more they're getting rid of Jordan Poole. than the Warriors taking on Chris Paul. I think, clearly whatever happened when Draymond punched all the common sense out of Jordan Poole, it fractured the team and fractured them together. I think Steve Kerr definitely made that call, like, look, we have to get rid of him somehow. I don't know if Chris Paul was the one to do it for, but here we are. To Nick's point, he's not going to be a starter. There's no Chris Paul accepting this trade. He has to understand, like, you're basically now the sixth man. Like, you're going to be the leader off the bench. And I think for the Warriors, does that make them a better team? That's a heavy question to ask, honestly, because, we talked about Chris Paul. I know, Ben, you said top 5. I'd say probably closer to top 10 point guards of all time. But we've all joked about, I've spent the bulk of the last 92 previous episodes talking about death, taxes, and the Chris Paul postseason injury. Like it's come up many times, and it did not fail me yet again this. So if you're the Warriors, like, I get it, but you're no more of a championship contender than you were this season. You might win a few more road games, which, God help me, you probably should have anyway. But as far as him being an impact player and being the reason why they get back to the championship level, no.
And just real quick, can I just give like some props to the Wizards for being able to get out of that horrendous contract with Bradley Beal, a $250 million contract with a no trade clause, and his numbers are clearly going down. I mean, and then for them to get Jordan Poole and Tyus Jones as your front court, 2 guys under the age of 26, that's not bad. That is not bad, and they're still not done. I just got to give them credit for that. But Ben, any other final thoughts on that before we go to Shohei Ohtani?
No, I'm good.
Yeah. All right, sounds good. Wow. Okay. Well, let's kind of get to this because I really want to get to this football one here. I'm just going to be very brief. Ohtani, look, I'm looking at the Angels here, and I'm looking at this ownership group. They really have no idea what they're doing. Right now, they're currently sitting at 43-37, 5 games back in the division. They're a team average at best. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. They're actually in the top 5 top 10 rather, batting average, on base percentage, and as well as in runs per game. But in that 10 game span, they're in the bottom half of everyone. So I think a drop is going to happen. If I'm them, I'd trade them at trade deadline and try to recruit as many assets as humanly possible, and I'd take for the highest bidder. But Gary, your thoughts on Nick and Ben?
So yeah, I was looking at the records as well. And while yes, they're third in their division, they're only a half game out of the last wild card spot. Right now, it's Baltimore, our Yankees, and the Blue Jays. They're occupying the 3 wild card spots, and then it's Houston and the Angels that are a half game back. So it's a weird position because historically, you look at the Angels, like, for all the talent they've had, they've never been able to get it right. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, you have two generational talents on your roster. You had one that was the face of baseball from the month of April to the month of September, because October he was nowhere to be found. And then you go ahead and get another generational talent that's putting up Babe Ruth, better than Babe Ruth type numbers, and you're in the same spot. Like, I thought that the Donald Sterling Clippers were bad, but the Angels might take the cake here, and with less controversy. Probably not as racist. So,
Wow.
if you're asking the question, what should the Angels do? Unless you're getting ready to pack up and move to another city, like, I don't know, the A's are doing. Unless you're doing that, you hold on to it. Unless you're in that boat, you hold on to a Shohei Ohtani. Like that. Him and
Damn.
Mike Trout are the faces of your franchise. And if you happen to have just decent management, general managers and presidents of baseball operations and all that, like if you have better people at the top, that Angels team should be a contender for championships year in and year out for the next 5 to 10 years, especially with what's left of Mike Trout in his prime. But we know that they're not. So saying all of that, you trade him. He shouldn't go to the Yankees. He absolutely should not go to the Dodgers because, like, they need it. He needs to go someplace else that will really make an impact. I'm going to throw Atlanta out there because they got the taste of success in 2021, and they're still hungry. Like, that team overachieved and realized, hey, we can actually win this if we get hot. You put him on Atlanta, forget about it. They'll win the NL East for a long time.
Facts. Okay. Yeah, I respect it. I don't want him coming to the Yankees either. We need a lot more. We need a lot more than Ohtani. A lot more than that.
Hey, Nick.
We're going to ruin him. We're going to ruin him if we do.
Nick, sign to an extension now, trade, or extension in the offseason. You're the GM.
Sign him right now. Sign him right now. Shohei Ohtani is like the Babe Ruth of our era right now. Sign him to an extension right now. And I know people are going to say that the Angels should be trading him. He should be better on a different team. They do him a favor, get rid of him. You didn't do anything with Trout. You're going to waste Ohtani away too. Here's the thing. When you're not as big of a market as you are the Angels, it can be really tough. In baseball, if you don't have a high cap, if you're not the Yankees or Red Sox, the Dodgers, if you're not one of those teams that have higher caps, you ain't competing right away. So when you have a guy like Ohtani, you're going to do everything you can to keep a guy like that because you're going to have your window at least open to at least going to a playoff and potentially a World Series. The window is going to stay open for you with a guy like that. Him and Trout on the same team, yeah, they need to figure out how the hell to win games right now to put it together so they can find some success for their overall organization. But if I'm in the manager chair, I'm not trading him whatsoever. I'm going to look to extend him as long as I can. So again, I got to hold that window open so that way we could get some other guys in. In baseball, you can hit as many home runs and drive as many runs you can, stuff like that. But if your defense and your pitching is not up to par, it's not up to snuff when it comes to postseason playoffs, that's what it's all about to me. Yes, you want to get the runs, and that's obvious. But when it comes to playoff baseball, it's about pitching. It's about your defense. So that's where, again, that's where it really comes into play. I love Ohtani. I think he's doing amazing things as a pitcher and a hitter. But I think for the Angels' sake, I think they need to hold on to him, extend him, so they can hold that window open.
Ben, if I recall, they I don't know if you do this, Nick, but I think it was 2-3 years ago, they used all their draft picks on pitching. Where the hell is it? That's all I'm going to say. They used all 15 of their draft picks on pitching. Where the hell is it? I don't understand. Here nor there.
I mean, just fire the scouting guy,
I mean, come on. I mean, not one of them. Not one of them is on their starting rotation. Not one of them. But
that's crazy. So on Ohtani, I say, Ryan, you stole it. What I was going to say is they've had two of the best 5 players in Major League Baseball for now 5.5 seasons. And out of those 5.5 seasons, I'm including this year, they haven't played one playoff game. Forget won a playoff game. They haven't even played in one. They haven't made the playoffs with 2 of the best 5 players in baseball. And sure, Ohtani was hurt the majority of one of the seasons, but still, throw that out. That's still 4 full seasons of having 2 of the best 5 players not going to the playoffs. That is absolutely absurd. And for me, I lean towards paying him now, but at the same time, for me, we already know he's had some injuries. We already know that with that and being a pitcher and a hitter, that those injuries could get worse as he gets older. And for me, his trade value is never higher than right now. He's never going to be as well. I mean, sure, you could say
I got a question for you, Ben. What package would you be able to get for if you're the Angel if you're really going to trade him? You know, you got all these teams lowballing, right?
I didn't even think or go there. So I don't know. I'm not answering that because I personally, I lean towards extending them. But let's be honest, the Angels don't have fans, whether he's on the team or not on the team. So from that perspective, that wouldn't make me say no. But Nick, for a player that is the modern day Babe Ruth, they would get a haul. I understand what you're saying about football, but they would get a haul.
And Gary, before we throw it to you, just real quick, because that, like, to me, I'm thinking at least 5 top end prospects, 3 fielders, 2 pitchers, and cash consideration. I mean, you're the Angels, you're a team that's contending. He leads. He's top 10 in hitting and pitching. You get 2 for 1. I would. I think it would have to be more than the Juan Soto trade. That's what I'm saying. More than the Juan Soto trade, easily.
Way more than the Juan Soto trade.
Easily. That's what I'm saying. Like 6, 7 draft picks. I'm talking. Give me the keys to your $100 million house. Give me everything. I want it all. Give me your wife. I don't care. Anyway, I'm sorry I said that. But anyway, respectfully. Gary, let's get to this NFL chatter here. Let's go to it. We're just going to do everyone just down the list here for the sake of time. Then we'll leave 2 or 3 minutes for conversation. NFL playoff picks, division winners, wild card teams. Gary, Ben, then Nick, then you'll finish it off. Go ahead, Gary.
Okay, so NFC North, I got the Lions winning the division. The South, the Saints, I guess. Somebody's got to win it, so sure, fine. So we'll say Saints. I have the Eagles breaking the streak of non-consecutive division winners in the NFC East. I think that they're loaded and they got better in the offseason, so I'm going to stick with them to win the East. I got the 49ers winning the West because I don't trust Arizona, I don't trust Seattle, and I don't trust really anybody else, and the Rams. So, and then your wild card teams, I'm going Dallas, Minnesota, and my New York Football Giants because I'm a homer. For the AFC, I'm going AFC North. I'm going Bengals, South Jaguars, East Bills, West Chiefs, and then the wild card Jets, Ravens, and here you go, Jeff, your Denver Broncos. But understand that I only picked them because we're on the show. To be very clear.
Oh, really?
That was a pick for you.
Got it all worked up. Got a butter.
Oh, wow. Okay, come on.
It could be them. It could be the Browns. It could be the Dolphins. Who knows? But
don't mess with my emotions like that, Gary. Come on now. You about to give me a diabetic heart attack on this show. All right.
So
Broncos.
Here we go. I'm going to surprise y'all with the AFC because there's going to be a team that you're going to be like, wait, where are they? So, division winners, Bills, Chiefs, Jaguars, Ravens. I do think the Bengals have probably the best roster, but at the same time, Ravens, they got a squad. And obviously Odell injury, Lamar injury concerns, but I'm just going to say Ravens. Bengals aren't going to fall off the face of the earth. So, Bills, Chiefs, Jaguars, Ravens, wild card, Bengals, Miami, Chargers. Sorry, Jets. I'm just saying, in history of all sports, there are a lot of teams that the expectations are here, and they fall flat on their face. And something just tells me, like, Aaron Rodgers, I'm sorry, he's better than Zach Wilson. Anybody would say that. Come on now. But I just think that they're not – I'm going to leave it at that. I got the Jets missing the playoffs. People can call me crazy. I don't care. NFC. Gary, NFC East, I was very close to picking the Eagles, but here's the only reason that I didn't, to be honest. One, A.J. Brown, besides last year, has gotten hurt every single year. That's number one. Number two, Jalen Hurts with his style, there could be some injuries there too. So granted, if they're both healthy for 14 or 15 of the 17 games, I'm going to say they would win. But because I like what Dallas has done and because I think that getting rid of Kellen Moore was a good idea. Getting Brandon Cooks as your number 2. I think their trio of wide receivers, Cooks, Lamb, and Gallup, really good receivers there. And getting Stephon Gilmore, and it was 31, 32, but their second corner was their biggest weakness the entire year. So now that's not the case. So Cowboys, 49ers, Falcons, Lions, and I got the wild card, Eagles, Giants, Seattle. There's my 14.
Okay, I like it. Nick, your thoughts?
Yeah, AFC for me, I'm going to go wild card first. Buffalo, Denver, Pittsburgh. Winners for the divisions. Bengals, Chargers, Jags, Jets. Now, for as much as you just said about the Jets not being a team that is going to make the postseason, I just think they're a division winner. And you have a lot of things that are going to go their way. Defensively, like, they're a unit that could have easily made the playoffs on that alone. They had some solid quarterback play. Now you insert Rodgers. Garrett Wilson, obviously a receiver that is going to go berserk this year. Just watch. And I think in general, this team is a really solid nucleus in general. I'm not going to say they're going to be a Super Bowl contender, but they're going to have an opportunity to at least win a lot of games. And it's going to be a fight for that division, but ultimately,
what were your 3 wild cards, AFC? One more time.
Buffalo, Denver, Pittsburgh.
Okay, got it.
I have the Ravens missing out, and it's only because I'm not sure about their defense. I like Lamar, I like the offense. I'm just not sure about their defense in its entirety. I think Pittsburgh made a lot of additions from the draft and free agency. I'm not a believer in Pickett, but I just think Mike Tomlin could get these guys over the hump. So I think that's why I got them slotted in. I think Denver, you're in for some positive regression for them. If I think Russell Wilson will get his stuff together, I think Denver will be a better team in general. It was the offense that was holding them back, not the defense. So I really like the nucleus. I think Sean Payton's going to come in. They're going to have systems working. I think it's going to have Russell Wilson. Got that Drew Brees late career magic going. I think Denver's a solid team to bounce back. And, the Jags are for real. You saw it last year, them coming back for 20 points down overall. So, in the wild card. And the Chargers, they're just a team that you get a guy like Kellen Moore becoming your offensive coordinator, and now you got a team that's going to go, I think, could easily score a ton of more points than they did offensively last year with more of the vertical offensive schemes that they'll have. And you have more of a complete offense. The only problem with this team was last year is that could they stay healthy, and hopefully health is fitting for them this time around. The NFC, I got the Eagles repeating, yes, the first time division winner in the last 20-something years. It's gonna happen. I think obviously the Eagles have a great offensive line. So anytime you have something like that as one of the top 5 offensive lines in the league, like, you're gonna have an opportunity to win a lot of games. Defensively, you got these monsters from the draft. You might as well just call this team, Philadelphia Bulldogs, because they got so many Georgia Bulldog players from that team that continue to factor winning caliber prospects. So I think Philly would be the most complete team in that division. And, barring injury, they should take the division once again. The Falcons, for me, is a team that is on the rise. I think people are really doubting Ritter. I think you should look at some of his college tape back in Cincinnati, and you should really double-check that. So that's where, again, for me, I think the team, the Falcons, are more complete, and I think in a division where it's open up for the AFC South, makes sense. The Lions, for me, simply based on they will just build upon what happened last year for them. The Niners, because Kyle Shanahan runs a great team in general. They're going to stop the run. They're going to play some great defense. No matter who the quarterback is, you got to feel confident with CMC back there. And then the wild card, Seattle, Dallas, and the Giants. So I think Brian Dable for the Giants, they're although they don't have a top receiver, I think they really have a good core going around. I think Brian Dable can bring this team to another level. And same thing with Seattle. They had a great draft. So And the
good stuff.
Cowgirls.
Nice. Gary, I know that you're about to face some technical difficulties, but go ahead with your gripe real quick, and I'll leave my teams out because y'all know where I'm at. It's either Broncos or bust. I don't have them winning anything this year. But anyway, you go ahead, Gary, and then we'll conclude.
I mean, I really don't have much of a gripe this week, except, you brought up, Ben, Chris Paul being a top 5 point guard. For the next episode, I would like to invite anybody and everybody. I personally think that he is outside the top 5. Present 5 point guards.
I agree with that.
So they present 5 point guards that are better than him, because I can name 5 right now. So, but for me, just going back to Chris Paul in general, I don't want to sit here and continuously shit on his legacy, because he has proven to be a winner wherever he goes. Except that, as I've said before, guys like him, guys like James Harden, they're allergic to playing basketball in the spring. So I'm asking the Golden State Warriors, is this it? Have you already decided that your dynasty is going to die and you're going to now go ahead and place this jumping of the shark on Chris Paul, because it seems like that's going to be the narrative with him, and or at least part of his legacy, and that's unfair to him, but numbers don't lie. He hasn't gotten to a finals. He got to one finals. Otherwise, it's been a good career, good to great career, but the way that we all sit here and call him the point guard, relax. I can name 5 guys better.
Hey, all facts. But guys, it's been a fun episode. Good stuff, Gary. Good stuff, Ben. Nick, do you want to give as for everyone on the show, do you want to tell people what you're doing, how they can follow you, and all that good stuff? You got the floor, sir.
Yeah, awesome. So TBQ Sports, we do a live podcast every Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern. Come check us out. Come and be a guest host. Love to have any of you guys on. I got my own thing on YouTube, Big Mouth Fantasy Sports. Going to be talking a lot about fantasy football. Got more videos to come out soon and to drop. So it's going to be a fantastic next couple months, because it's about to be the holy grail time of the year where we got football, basketball, hockey, like all in the same, and the baseball playoffs. Like, you got it all. So look out. I'd love to be on here again, and I appreciate you guys for the love and support and all the comments and the chats, and I really appreciate it all. So look forward to being on again soon.
Well, no doubt. Definitely like to have you on, Gary, Ben. Until next week. We're getting close to episode 100, guys. It's gonna happen soon. We will get there, hopefully before football season. Well, that's all for tonight, folks.
I think you're well on your way.
I like adding with a little humor at the end. I like
right?
We're
Hopefully we get there.
Yes, we will.
Go team, go!
Yes. But until next time, that's a wrap for tonight. We want to thank all our supporters. Stay tuned for our next episode sometime in the near future. Maybe we'll have an episode this week. Maybe we won't, but we'll definitely have one next Tuesday. So peace and love, y'all. Deuces.